If you've ever used DeFi, I'm sure you felt that sting. You know, you click swap on what looks like a great price, but the final amount you get is, well, it's less. Today, we're building your defense against the two hidden culprits behind that feeling, slippage and MEV.
So let's start with a feeling I bet is pretty familiar. You see a great price for a token, you hit confirm, you're feeling good, and then the final number that lands in your wallet is just a little bit worse, or sometimes a lot worse. It is so frustrating, and it's easy to just blame the market, but you know what? There are often other kind of hidden forces at play. All right, so let's pull back the curtain on those hidden forces. We're going to talk about something called MEV, and we're going to see how that little slippage setting you choose can basically act like an open doorway for it to mess with your trades. So, what even is MEV? The fancy term is maximal extractable value, but just think of it as profit that can be made by strategically reordering transactions in a block. So, for example, a bot could see your big buy order coming, jump right in front of you to buy that same token, let your trade push the price up, and then boom, it immediately sells for a tiny risk-free profit. It's not a hack, it's just a reality of how these public blockchains work.
And this is all possible for one simple reason. The second you broadcast your transaction, your plan to swap becomes public knowledge. And this is before it's even confirmed. This visibility just creates a race, a competition. And that race can directly and negatively impact the final price you end up getting.
And this is exactly where your slippage setting comes in. See, it has two faces. On the one hand, you kind of need it. It helps your trade go through even with normal, tiny price movements. But on the other hand, it's basically a permission slip. When you set a high slippage, you're literally telling the smart contract, hey, I'm totally okay with getting a price anywhere within this much wider and potentially much worse range.
Okay, so now this small risk you've just permitted can become a very, very big problem. Certain market environments act like fuel on the fire, and they can dramatically amplify your exposure.
So, what should you be looking out for? Think of these as giant red flags for your swap. Thin liquidity? That means even a small trade can cause a huge price swing. High volatility? Well, that means prices are already all over the place. Complex routes that bounce through multiple pools? That just creates more chances for things to go wrong. And of course, if your trade size is massive compared to the liquidity, you're going to move the price against yourself, guaranteed. Any one of these things raises your risk.
But here's the real takeaway, the thing you have to remember. The absolute most dangerous combination is thin liquidity combined with a wide slippage tolerance. That mix right there creates a super fragile environment that's just begging to be exploited, and it almost guarantees you're going to get a bad price.
Okay, enough about the scary stuff. Let's talk about the solution. We're now shifting to the most practical part of this whole thing. A clear, actionable checklist you can use to protect your swaps and just trade smarter. All right, here it is. 6 simple steps. First, keep your slippage tight, like really tight. Start low. Only raise it if you know exactly why you're doing it. 2, and this is non-negotiable, always read the minimum received amount. 3, check your price impact. If it's high, your trade is too big for the pool. Which leads right into number 4, control your trade size. Maybe you need to split it up into smaller chunks. 5, try to avoid those chaos windows. You know, those super volatile moments right after big news drops. And finally, maybe the most important skill of all, number 6, be okay with no trade. Seriously, sometimes the best move is no move at all.
You know, I really want to pause on this because this is a fundamental mindset shift. That flashy quote you see on the screen, that's just marketing. It's an estimate. The minimum received number that you actually approve in your wallet, that is the real contract you are signing. It's the absolute worst-case price you've agreed to accept. You have to start treating that number as your real price.
So what happens if your swap just keeps failing with that tight slippage? Look, don't just get frustrated and crank the slippage up to 5%. See it for what it is, a signal. The market is talking to you. It's telling you that conditions are too choppy or maybe your trade is just too big. The calm, defensive response is to shrink your trade size, wait for things to calm down, or just skip the trade entirely.
And that really leaves us with a final question to think about. What defines a good trade anyway? Is it always finding a way to force a transaction through no matter what? Or is it having the discipline, having the skill to recognize a high-risk environment and protect your capital by simply walking away?
And just a reminder, of course, this is all for educational purposes. It is not financial advice. Digital assets carry a very high risk of loss, so please always do your own research. Thanks for tuning in.